What if you suddenly lost everything and had no one by your side? That was the question running through Maya Carter's mind as she stood on the curb of 6th Street in Austin, Texas, watching the sun rise over the city's skyline, painting the glass towers with hues of gold and pink. It was the dawn of a new era, the day Tesla's Robotaxi fleet officially hit the streets, promising rides for just $4.20, a price point Elon Musk himself had tweeted about in a mix of meme humor and visionary ambition. The first shiny silver vehicle glided silently toward the designated pickup zone, its lights flickering softly like a beacon of the future. Maya, a young single mother with tired eyes and worn sneakers, felt a strange mix of skepticism and curiosity. Life hadn't been kind to her lately. Between juggling 2 jobs and raising her 6-year-old son Eli alone, she felt like she was barely keeping her head above water. The promise of cheap, autonomous rides sounded almost too good to be true. Yet here she was, caught between hope and fear, wondering if this robot-driven revolution might be the break she desperately needed or just another thing to complicate her already chaotic life. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? She imagined a voice saying, like a lifeline thrown out to those watching from afar, connecting strangers through shared struggles and dreams. Maya's life was a series of unpredictable setbacks and small victories, like the weathered streets of Austin itself, full of history, resilience, and a stubborn heartbeat that refused to quit. Her mother had died when Maya was barely a teenager, leaving behind a void filled with unspoken words and the weight of survival. Her father had long since disappeared into the haze of his own regrets, leaving Maya to fend for herself and, later, for Eli. She often wondered if this new technology, this shiny promise of progress, was for people like her, people who weren't Silicon Valley elites or tech wizards but just trying to carve out a decent life in a changing world. The Tesla Robotaxi rolled to a gentle stop, its doors sliding open like a futuristic invitation. Maya hesitated, the image of Eli's hopeful face flashing in her mind. Could she trust a car without a driver? What if something went wrong? The city around her buzzed with excitement and fear, reporters capturing the first rides, social media exploding with reactions, from excitement about affordable rides to heated debates about job loss and safety. Maya stepped forward, deciding to take the plunge. The car's interior was sleek and minimalistic, almost unnerving in its quiet precision. As the door closed behind her, the car's AI greeted her in a calm, reassuring voice, "Welcome aboard, Maya. Your destination." She gave the address of the job interview she could barely afford to attend, the one she hoped might be a stepping stone out of the chaos. As the Robotaxi pulled away from the curb, Maya's mind raced with questions about the future. Would this technology save her or leave her stranded? Would her son grow up in a world where human connection was replaced by cold algorithms? The car glided through Austin's vibrant streets, past the colorful murals of East Austin, the sprawling green spaces of Zilker Park, and the humming nightlife of downtown, a city caught between its rebellious soul and the rapid advance of progress. Suddenly, a glitch caused the car to slow abruptly, jolting Maya from her thoughts. Panic crept in as the car's systems rebooted, the lights flickering ominously. Alone inside the capsule of glass and steel, Maya gripped the armrest, heart pounding. Just when fear threatened to take over, a notification blinked on the dashboard, "Emergency override in progress. Please remain calm." Minutes felt like hours before the car resumed its smooth ride. When it finally stopped at her destination, Maya stepped out, shaken but strangely exhilarated. This was just the beginning. Outside, the world continued to shift and spin around her, new technologies promising to reshape the American landscape. But for Maya, the journey was deeply personal. She was fighting not just for a better job or safer rides, but for the chance to reclaim control over her life in a world that seemed increasingly automated and indifferent. As she walked toward the interview, Maya's phone buzzed with a message from her best friend Jenna, "You took the ride. Proud of you. This changes everything." Maya smiled faintly, feeling the first stirrings of hope. Maybe this $4.20 ride was more than a cheap fare, maybe it was a ticket to a new beginning. She thought about Eli, about the lessons she wanted to teach him, resilience, courage, and the power to adapt. The Robotaxi revolution had arrived in Austin, and with it, a challenge to every assumption she had about progress, technology, and the future. Maya was ready to meet it head-on. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? For Maya, it was love, the fierce, unyielding love for her son and the quiet hope that tomorrow could be better than today. This story is just getting started, and as the city of Austin awakens to the hum of autonomous engines, so too does Maya's journey begin, a journey filled with uncertainty, struggle, but also the possibility of transformation. The road ahead might be full of bumps and unexpected detours, but one thing was clear. The revolution was here, and it was moving fast. And somewhere in the heart of it all, Maya was finding her own way forward. What will she discover next? What choices will define her future? Stay tuned for the next chapter of Tesla Robotaxi hits Austin, Elon Musk's $4.20 ride revolution. The ride of a lifetime has just begun. Maya Carter's past was a tangled web of memories that stretched back to a small, weather-beaten house in East Austin where she grew up with her mother, Gloria, a fiery woman who worked 2 jobs to keep the lights on and food on the table. Gloria's laughter was loud and full of life, but beneath it lay a fierce determination born of hardship. Maya remembered sitting on the creaky wooden porch with her mother on hot summer nights, the cicadas singing in the darkness as Gloria talked about dreams bigger than their little neighborhood. But those dreams were fragile. When Maya was 13, her mother fell ill, the bright light in their home dimming slowly as Gloria battled cancer. Maya had never felt so alone. Her father, whom she barely knew, drifted out of their lives, unable or unwilling to face the responsibility that came with fatherhood. That absence left a hollow ache in Maya that never quite healed. Raised mostly by her mother, Maya learned early what it meant to fight for survival. School was a place where she often felt out of place, caught between worlds, the dreams of a better life and the harsh realities of poverty. She was a bright kid, always curious about how things worked, but with little encouragement beyond her mother's quiet hopes. Gloria told her, "You've got a mind that can build bridges, Maya. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." But when Gloria died, a few months after Maya's 14th birthday, those words echoed in the empty house, a bittersweet reminder of a promise Maya wasn't sure she could keep. The following years were a blur of foster homes and strained relationships, but Maya held on to her determination. She took every odd job she could find, from waiting tables to cleaning offices late at night. When Eli was born, it was both a blessing and a challenge, a chance to love and nurture, but also a reminder that she needed to build something better, not just for herself but for her son. Despite the struggles, Maya was fiercely protective of Eli and dedicated to giving him a childhood she never had. Her friend Jenna was a lifeline, a constant in a world that often seemed unstable. Jenna worked at a community center and was the kind of person who believed that change was possible, no matter how grim things looked. Together, they talked about dreams, struggles, and the strange promise of technology that was creeping into their lives. Jenna had embraced the idea of Tesla's Robotaxi with open arms, believing it could ease their daily burdens. Maya, on the other hand, remained skeptical. She had seen automation take jobs from people she knew, and the thought of machines replacing human connection made her uneasy. But even as doubt gnawed at her, she couldn't deny the allure of something that might make life easier. In recent months, Maya had spent nights researching the technology behind Tesla's autonomous cars, trying to understand if there was a place for her in this new world. She discovered stories of engineers and programmers pouring their hearts into the project, driven by visions of a safer, cleaner future. One name kept coming up, Ethan Cole, a young Tesla engineer stationed in Austin, known for his passion and idealism. Maya found herself curious about him, wondering what it was like to be on the front line of such a radical change. Meanwhile, her day-to-day life was a constant balancing act. Between her 2 jobs, one at a diner and the other cleaning offices, she barely had time to breathe. Eli's laughter was the bright spot in her day, a reminder that no matter how tough things got, there was joy to be found. Their apartment was small and cluttered but filled with love. Nights were often spent reading stories to Eli, making up tales about brave heroes and magical places, planting seeds of hope in his young mind. Yet the weight of responsibility was heavy. Every missed rent payment, every skipped meal, was a reminder of the precariousness of their situation. Maya dreamed of more: stability, education, a future where Eli could run free without fear. The day Tesla announced the Robotaxi launch in Austin, Maya felt a flicker of something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in a long time: possibility. She watched the news coverage, saw the gleaming vehicles roll out on the streets, and heard Elon Musk's bold promises of affordability and convenience. But that night, as she lay awake listening to Eli's soft breathing, doubts crept in. Was this truly a revolution for everyone, or just another way to widen the gap between the haves and have-nots? The next morning, Maya's skepticism was put to the test when a glitch in the Tesla app cancelled her ride to work, costing her a shift she desperately needed. The frustration boiled over during a phone call with Jenna, who urged her to give the Robotaxi another chance, claiming it would change their lives. "You have to try it, Maya. This isn't just about rides, it's about the future, about what we deserve," Jenna insisted. Reluctantly, Maya agreed to take another ride, this time to a job interview that might offer a path out of her current struggles. When the Robotaxi arrived, its quiet hum filled her with a strange sense of both awe and unease. The car's interior was surprisingly comfortable, almost clinical, with smooth leather seats and a digital interface that spoke in a calm, soothing voice. Maya settled in, her hands gripping the armrest as the car began to move. The streets of Austin passed by in a blur, the vibrant murals of East Austin, the leafy green canopy of the University of Texas campus, the eclectic shops lining South Congress Avenue. Maya's mind raced, replaying the interview questions she'd prepared and the possibilities this ride might unlock. Then, unexpectedly, the car jolted, slowing sharply. Panic surged through her as the dashboard flickered, and the voice in the car asked her to remain calm while an emergency override activated. Trapped inside a silent metal capsule, Maya felt her heart pound as minutes dragged on. When the car finally resumed its smooth journey, she exhaled deeply, the tension easing slightly but the experience lingering in her mind like a shadow. At the interview, Maya felt the weight of every second, every pause, every answer. She left the building with cautious optimism but knew the real challenge was just beginning. Over the next few days, Maya found herself drawn into the world behind the Robotaxi, reading articles about Tesla's innovation, following Elon Musk's social media updates, and even reaching out to forums where engineers like Ethan Cole discussed the future of autonomous vehicles. Their conversations intrigued her, technical yet hopeful, filled with the belief that technology could serve humanity rather than replace it. A chance encounter at a local coffee shop brought Maya face to face with Ethan himself. He was younger than she expected, with an easy smile and a restless energy. They talked about Austin, the city's contradictions, and the hope that technology could bridge gaps rather than deepen divides. Ethan shared stories of the Tesla factory's tireless work to perfect the Robotaxi system and the obstacles they faced along the way. Their conversations became a lifeline for Maya, sparking a new curiosity and a sense of purpose. Yet, beneath the excitement, the city buzzed with unrest. Workers at traditional taxi companies staged protests, fearing the loss of livelihoods to autonomous fleets. News headlines highlighted accidents and software glitches, fueling public anxiety. Maya found herself caught in the middle, hopeful for change but aware of the real human cost. One evening, Maya sat with Eli on the couch, watching a documentary about automation and jobs. Eli's innocent questions tugged at her heart. "Mom, will robots take all the jobs? Will people still need me?" She struggled to find words that balanced honesty with reassurance, realizing that the future she was stepping into was as uncertain as it was promising. As Tesla's Robotaxi continued its rollout across Austin, Maya's life began to shift in unexpected ways. Her job interview led to a temporary position at a community outreach program funded by Tesla, aimed at helping locals understand and adapt to the changing landscape. The role was challenging but gave her a new sense of direction and hope. Meanwhile, her growing friendship with Ethan deepened, each learning from the other's perspective. He saw in her the grit and resilience that the tech world often lacked, while she saw in him the possibility that innovation could be humane and inclusive. Together, they envisioned a future where technology and community could coexist. But life, as always, was unpredictable. One night, after a long day at work, Maya received a call that shook her world. Her company was announcing layoffs, citing automation as a key factor. The news felt like a punch to the gut, threatening to unravel the fragile progress she had made. Desperate and scared, Maya leaned on Jenna and Ethan for support. Through tears and frustration, she found solace in their belief that this crisis could be a catalyst for growth rather than defeat. Maya realized that her fight wasn't just personal, it was part of a larger story about how communities adapt to change. She began organizing neighborhood meetings, bringing together workers, activists, and Tesla representatives to discuss the future. These gatherings were emotional and raw, filled with anger, fear, but also hope. Maya's leadership emerged as a beacon, her voice steady even when her heart wavered. Through it all, Eli remained her anchor. Watching him grow, laugh, and dream reminded her that the stakes were real and deeply personal. She promised herself she would do everything in her power to ensure he had opportunities she never did. Slowly, Maya's journey transformed from one of survival to one of empowerment. She applied for an internship at Tesla's Austin facility, determined to be part of the solution, to shape technology in a way that honored human needs. Her acceptance was a triumph, but also the start of new challenges, navigating a corporate environment, learning complex systems, and proving herself in a world that often judged her by her past. Yet with every obstacle, Maya grew stronger, her vision clearer. She understood now that the revolution wasn't just about robots or rides, it was about resilience, community, and the courage to embrace the unknown. And as Austin streets hummed with the quiet revolution of autonomous cars, Maya's story was a testament to the enduring power of hope and the unyielding spirit of those who dare to dream. Maya Carter had begun to feel the pulse of the city shift beneath her feet as Tesla's Robotaxi fleet expanded across Austin. What started as cautious curiosity had evolved into a daily reality that challenged everything she thought she knew about work, community, and the future. The early days of excitement gave way to complex challenges, not just technical glitches or media hype, but real tensions unfolding between the old world and the new. The taxi drivers who once ruled the streets now looked on with suspicion and anger, their protests growing louder as they feared the loss of livelihoods to automated machines. Maya watched as familiar faces, people she had grown up with or crossed paths with in her many jobs, faced uncertainty and desperation. These were more than just jobs, they were identities, histories, and the backbone of families. On the other side were Tesla's engineers and visionaries, led by Ethan Cole, who believed deeply in the promise of technology to create a safer, cleaner, and more efficient world. Maya found herself caught in the middle, trying to understand both sides. The human cost and the technological promise. The days blurred with meetings, community forums, and heated debates. One evening, at a crowded town hall, Maya stood before a restless crowd, their voices rising in frustration. "We're not against progress," she said, her voice steady despite the tension, "but progress that leaves people behind isn't progress at all." The room fell silent, the weight of her words settling in. She proposed a vision where Tesla, the city, and its workers could collaborate, retraining programs, community investments, and partnerships that ensured no one was left out. Elon Musk's tweets had captured imaginations, but Maya knew the real work was on the ground, in conversations, compromises, and courage. At Tesla's Austin facility, the team worked tirelessly to refine the Robotaxi system, addressing concerns and improving safety protocols. Maya's internship gave her an inside look at the challenges engineers faced, coding complex algorithms, managing hardware failures, and battling skepticism from regulators and the public alike. Ethan became her mentor and confidant, sharing the highs and lows of their mission. "We're not just building cars," he told her one night as they watched the city lights from the factory rooftop, "we're building a future that people can believe in." But the future wasn't without its storms. A sudden software glitch caused a Robotaxi to malfunction during rush hour, leading to a minor accident that ignited a media firestorm. Headlines screamed about the dangers of autonomous vehicles, and public trust wavered. Maya felt the pressure as she faced skeptical community members and anxious city officials. She realized that trust had to be earned, not demanded, and that transparency was key. To rebuild confidence, she helped organize live demonstrations, safety workshops, and open Q&A sessions where the public could meet the engineers and see the technology up close. Slowly, the tide began to turn. Stories emerged of Robotaxis saving lives, reducing accidents, and providing mobility to those who had few options before. Elderly residents in South Austin praised the independence the service gave them. For Maya, these moments were affirmations that the struggle was worth it. Yet beneath the progress, personal challenges weighed heavily. Maya's mothering duties never ceased. Eli was growing curious about the world, asking questions about robots, jobs, and what the future held for kids like him. Balancing work, school, and activism left Maya exhausted, but Eli's laughter and questions fueled her resolve. At home, she wrestled with doubts and fears, wondering if she was doing enough or if she risked becoming part of the very system that threatened people she cared about. One afternoon, as Maya walked through a neighborhood park with Eli, they encountered an older man named Carl, a former taxi driver whose job was displaced by automation. Carl shared his story, years behind the wheel, providing for his family, and now struggling to find a new path. His pride was bruised, but his spirit remained unbroken. Maya listened, feeling the weight of his words settle deep in her heart. She realized the revolution wasn't just about machines but about people's dignity and dreams. Inspired, Maya worked with Tesla and local nonprofits to launch a pilot program offering retraining for displaced workers, teaching skills in tech support, maintenance, and customer service for the Robotaxi fleet. The initiative wasn't perfect, but it was a start. Slowly, Carl enrolled, learning to adapt to a world that had changed overnight. As the months passed, Maya's relationship with Ethan deepened beyond mentorship into something more personal. They bonded over shared hopes and frustrations, late-night coding sessions, and quiet moments watching Austin's skyline. Ethan admired Maya's grit and wisdom, while she found in him a rare blend of idealism and pragmatism. Their connection was a bright thread weaving through the chaos of their lives. Yet, as their bond grew, so did the stakes. Tesla faced increasing scrutiny from regulators, competitors, and skeptics who questioned the viability and ethics of autonomous taxis. Maya was thrust into the spotlight, balancing her role as an advocate, intern, and community leader. Pressure mounted, and the line between work and personal life blurred. One night, during a crucial board meeting, a tense debate erupted over whether to delay the Robotaxi rollout after a string of technical setbacks. Maya stood firm, arguing that halting progress would hurt the communities who relied on affordable transportation the most. Her words resonated, and a compromise was reached: more testing, increased safety measures, and continued community engagement. The decision was a hard-won victory, but the battle was far from over. Outside the corporate walls, the city grappled with the broader implications of automation. Small businesses worried about delivery jobs lost to drones and robots. Public transit agencies faced funding crises. Maya found herself advocating not just for Tesla's technology but for a holistic approach to economic and social change. In one pivotal moment, a family from East Austin shared their story on local news: how the Robotaxi allowed them to access medical care and jobs they otherwise couldn't reach. Their gratitude underscored the transformative potential of technology when paired with compassion. But tensions flared again when protests escalated, and accusations flew about Tesla's role in widening inequality. Maya stood in the middle, torn between loyalty to the mission and empathy for those left behind. She realized that the revolution wasn't just about rides or profits, it was about redefining what progress meant in a city rooted in history and heart. One evening, after a particularly grueling day, Maya sat alone on the rooftop of her apartment building, the city sprawling below like a living organism. The Robotaxi moved silently through the streets, their lights flickering like fireflies in the dusk. She thought about the road behind her, the loss, the fight, the small victories, and the road ahead, uncertain and wide open. The future was a fragile thing, shaped by choices big and small, by courage and compassion. As dawn broke over Austin, Maya felt a quiet resolve settle within her. She was no longer just a passenger in the revolution, she was a driver, steering the course toward a future where technology served humanity, where no one was left behind. The Tesla Robotaxi was more than a vehicle, it was a symbol of change, challenge, and hope. And in the heart of that change stood Maya Carter, a woman who had lost everything but refused to lose herself. What would come next was unwritten, a story still unfolding on the streets of Austin and in the lives of those brave enough to dream of something better. The morning sun poured golden light across the streets of Austin as Maya Carter stepped outside her apartment, the hum of Tesla Robotaxis weaving quietly through the city's arteries. What had once felt like a distant promise now pulsed vividly in the air. The future was here, but it was far from simple. Maya's world was shifting in ways she could barely predict. The past few months had been a whirlwind of hope, setbacks, and unexpected discoveries. With her internship at Tesla well underway, she was no longer just an observer but a participant in the revolution. Yet, the deeper she dug into the Robotaxi program, the more she realized how much was still unknown, not just about the technology, but about the human stories tangled beneath the surface. One morning, as she entered the sleek Tesla facility on East 5th Street, Maya was greeted by a buzz of activity. Engineers clustered around holographic displays, their faces illuminated by the glow of code and schematics. The air smelled faintly of machine oil and ozone. She felt a thrill. This was the heart of innovation, a place where dreams and data collided. Ethan was waiting for her by the central workstation, his eyes bright with the kind of excitement that never seemed to fade. "Ready for today's test drive?" he asked, handing her a digital tablet. The test was critical, a new software update designed to improve navigation in crowded urban environments. If successful, it would mark a leap forward in safety and efficiency. They climbed into a gleaming Robotaxi, its doors sliding open silently. Maya settled into the passenger seat, the car's interior glowing softly. The dashboard's AI greeted her by name, the voice calm and almost human. As the vehicle glided out onto the street, Maya felt a blend of anticipation and unease. The city unfolded around them, bustling markets, the chatter of morning joggers, and the kaleidoscope of murals on nearby walls. Every turn and stop was a test of precision. For the first few minutes, everything went smoothly. The car navigated tight corners, avoided pedestrians, and adjusted speed seamlessly. Maya marveled at how natural it all felt, like riding in a trusted companion. But then, a sudden flash of warning lit up the dashboard. The car slowed abruptly as a cyclist darted unexpectedly across the street. The AI executed a flawless emergency stop, bringing the vehicle to a gentle halt mere inches from the cyclist. Maya's heart pounded in her chest. "That was incredible," she whispered. Ethan smiled. "That's the system adapting in real time. It learns from every moment." The ride continued, weaving through the heart of downtown Austin. Maya took mental notes, fascinated by the blend of machine learning and human intuition programmed into the AI. Yet beneath her all lingered a question she couldn't shake: what happens when the unexpected isn't so easily managed? Back at the facility, the team reviewed data, dissecting every decision the AI had made. Maya joined in, offering insights from her community outreach experience. "People here value connection," she said. "They want to trust the machines, but they also want to feel seen." Her words sparked a discussion about how the Robotaxi interface could be made more transparent, communicating intentions clearly to passengers and pedestrians alike. The day's work stretched late into the evening, but Maya didn't mind. She felt alive, part of something bigger than herself. Yet as she left the building under a sky streaked with pink and purple, reality tugged at her thoughts. The city was still struggling, protests flared sporadically, news stories highlighted accidents involving autonomous vehicles, and families worried about job losses. The promise of progress clashed with the pain of change. That night, Maya sat at her kitchen table, Eli asleep in the next room. She scrolled through messages from neighbors, colleagues, and Tesla employees, their voices a mix of hope, fear, and frustration. One message stood out. An invitation to join a new task force aimed at improving community relations and transparency around the Robotaxi program. Maya accepted immediately, seeing it as a chance to bridge divides and influence policy. The task force meetings were intense and emotional. Representatives from Tesla, city officials, activists, and displaced workers came together, each carrying their own fears and aspirations. Maya listened carefully, often acting as a translator between the technical jargon of engineers and the lived experiences of everyday people. It became clear that technology alone couldn't solve the city's problems. Trust had to be rebuilt through empathy and action. During one meeting, Carl, the former taxi driver, spoke passionately about his fears. "I don't want charity," he said. "I want a future where my skills matter, where I'm part of the solution." His words resonated deeply with Maya and others. In response, the task force proposed expanded retraining programs, financial support, and community investments funded partly by Tesla. The negotiations were difficult, with setbacks and compromises, but slowly, progress emerged. Meanwhile, Maya's internship led her to a groundbreaking project, integrating human-centered design into the Robotaxi interface. She worked closely with user experience designers to develop features that allowed passengers to communicate easily with the AI, report concerns, and feel a sense of control. Maya drew on her own experiences, imagining the diverse needs of Austin's residents. Young and old, tech-savvy and wary. One prototype included a feature where the Robotaxi could display its route and decisions on a screen, building transparency. Another allowed passengers to customize their ride experience, from music preferences to conversation levels. Testing these features on the streets brought new challenges and revelations. Passengers reacted differently, some embraced the technology enthusiastically, others remained skeptical or fearful. Maya spent hours talking to riders, gathering feedback that would shape future iterations. In the midst of this, her relationship with Ethan blossomed. They shared late nights at the facility, exploring ideas and dreams, their conversations weaving between code and life. Ethan admired Maya's resilience and vision, while she found in him a partner who believed in technology as a force for good. But the balance was fragile. The pressures of their work and the outside world often collided. One afternoon, a critical software update malfunctioned during a public demonstration, causing a Robotaxi to abruptly halt and strand passengers. The incident sparked criticism from media and activists alike. Maya was thrust into the spotlight, managing communications and calming public fears. It was a grueling experience that tested her resolve. In private, she wrestled with self-doubt and frustration, wondering if the dream was slipping away. Yet, with Ethan's support and her own determination, Maya doubled down on efforts to improve the system and rebuild trust. She organized community forums where engineers could meet residents face-to-face, answering questions and listening to concerns. These events were raw and honest, moments where barriers broke down and empathy grew. One evening, Maya found herself sitting beside Gloria's old porch in East Austin, the night alive with the sounds of cicadas and distant music. She thought about her mother's words, "You've got a mind that can build bridges." Now, more than ever, Maya understood their meaning. The bridges she sought to build were not just of steel or code, but of understanding and hope. Her work with the Robotaxi program was no longer just a job, it was a mission to shape a future that honored both progress and people. As the months passed, the city began to adapt. Neighborhoods once divided by fear and skepticism started embracing the new technology, aided by the task force's efforts and Maya's relentless advocacy. The retraining programs helped displaced workers find new roles in the evolving economy, while safety improvements reduced accidents and boosted confidence. Tesla's Robotaxi fleet became a familiar sight, a symbol of innovation and possibility. Yet, the journey was far from over. The revolution demanded constant vigilance, creativity, and compassion. Maya's life reflected this ongoing dance. Balancing motherhood, work, and activism with moments of quiet joy and connection. Eli grew curious about robotics and coding, inspired by his mother's passion. Together, they dreamed of futures where technology and humanity coexisted harmoniously. One crisp autumn morning, Maya and Ethan stood together at the launch of a new Robotaxi model, its sleek design a testament to months of hard work. The city gathered, a mix of officials, media, residents, and workers, each witnessing a milestone in Austin's unfolding story. Maya's heart swelled with pride and hope. The journey had been long and difficult, marked by doubt and struggle, but it had also revealed the strength of community and the power of vision. As Elon Musk's vision rolled quietly through the streets of Austin, Maya knew the true revolution was not in the machines themselves, but in the people who dared to dream, to fight, and to build bridges across a changing world. The Tesla Robotaxi program in Austin was no longer just a bold experiment, it had become a living, breathing part of the city's fabric, weaving together stories of ambition, resistance, and transformation. Maya Carter stood at the crossroads of this shifting landscape, feeling the weight and promise of what lay ahead. The journey into the heart of the autonomous revolution was about to take an unexpected turn. The city's reaction to the Robotaxi was complex and multifaceted, revealing layers of conflict that neither Tesla's engineers nor the local government had fully anticipated. Behind the scenes, tensions simmered between competing interests, tech enthusiasts eager to embrace the future, workers fearing displacement, city officials balancing progress with responsibility, and everyday citizens caught in the middle. Maya's role expanded as she found herself navigating these turbulent waters, balancing her internship duties with community engagement and personal commitments. It began one morning with a message that disrupted the fragile calm. Tesla's data analytics team had detected unusual patterns in the Robotaxi network, sporadic slowdowns and route deviations that didn't align with normal traffic conditions. Initial assessments suggested a possible cyber attack targeting the system's AI algorithms. The implications were chilling. If the Robotaxi fleet could be compromised, the entire operation, and public safety, was at risk. Maya and Ethan quickly joined emergency meetings, the atmosphere charged with urgency and concern. Engineers scrambled to isolate vulnerabilities, while PR teams prepared to manage the inevitable public fallout. The city's cybersecurity experts were brought in, forming a joint task force with Tesla's internal teams. For Maya, the unfolding crisis was both terrifying and illuminating. She witnessed firsthand the fragility of relying on complex, interconnected systems and the critical importance of transparency and trust. As news of the attack leaked, media outlets speculated wildly, fueling fear and skepticism among Austin's residents. Protest groups seized on the story, demanding immediate halts to the Robotaxi program. Maya faced angry calls and messages from community members who felt betrayed and unsafe. The moment tested her resolve. Drawing on her experiences and relationships, she organized a series of public briefings designed to explain the situation honestly and calmly. She emphasized the steps being taken to secure the system and protect passengers, highlighting the expertise and dedication of the engineers working around the clock. These sessions were raw and emotional. Some residents expressed deep mistrust, while others voiced appreciation for the transparency. Maya listened carefully, taking notes and offering reassurance where she could. The crisis forced her to confront uncomfortable truths, the limits of technology, the complexities of change, and the necessity of ongoing dialogue between innovators and the community. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, Ethan and the cybersecurity team traced the source of the attack to a sophisticated hacking group operating out of a foreign country. Their goal appeared to be disruption and chaos rather than theft or destruction. Tesla's leadership debated how publicly to address the geopolitical implications, weighing transparency against potential panic. Maya advocated for openness, believing that honesty would foster trust and resilience. As the security patches were deployed and systems fortified, the Robotaxi fleet gradually returned to normal operations. Yet the incident left a mark, a reminder that progress came with vulnerabilities and risks. For Maya, the experience deepened her understanding of the delicate balance between innovation and responsibility. At the same time, personal challenges pressed close. Balancing her demanding internship with motherhood became increasingly difficult. Eli, growing more curious and restless, often asked questions about the Robotaxi, automation, and what the future held for kids like him. Maya treasured these moments, sharing stories and dreams, even as exhaustion gnawed at her. One afternoon, while helping Eli with a school project on robotics, Maya realized how much the revolution was shaping the next generation's worldview. She resolved to advocate not just for technology but for education and opportunity, ensuring that children from all backgrounds could thrive in a rapidly changing world. Amid the crisis and personal demands, Maya's relationship with Ethan deepened. They found solace and strength in each other, their partnership a beacon amid uncertainty. Together, they brainstormed new features for the Robotaxi interface to enhance passenger safety and interaction. One idea was an emergency override system allowing passengers to communicate directly with Tesla's support center if they felt unsafe or confused. Testing the feature brought its own set of challenges, highlighting the complexity of designing technology that felt intuitive, accessible, and trustworthy. As autumn faded into winter, the city held its breath, waiting to see how the Robotaxi program would emerge from the storm. Community sentiment remained fragile, but small victories began to surface. Stories of passengers safely reaching medical appointments, children riding independently to school, and elderly residents gaining newfound mobility circulated widely. Maya took these moments as proof that the revolution could be compassionate and inclusive. Yet opposition persisted. A vocal coalition of labor unions, activists, and displaced workers organized a major protest march through downtown Austin. Maya attended, listening to their stories of hardship, loss, and hope. The march was peaceful but passionate, a stark reminder that technology alone could not solve systemic inequalities. Moved by their courage, Maya helped facilitate dialogues between protest leaders and Tesla executives, seeking common ground and actionable solutions. The conversations were difficult but necessary. Through these efforts, new initiatives emerged, job placement programs, community investment funds, and partnerships with local colleges to provide technical training. The city council passed regulations requiring greater oversight and community involvement in autonomous vehicle deployments. For Maya, these developments marked significant progress but underscored how much work remained. The revolution was not a sprint but a marathon demanding perseverance, empathy, and collaboration. On a crisp winter evening, Maya found herself alone on the rooftop of her apartment building, gazing at the twinkling lights of Austin below. The Robotaxi glided silently through the streets, symbols of a future both thrilling and uncertain. She thought about the countless lives touched by the technology, the excitement, the fear, the resistance, and the hope. The path forward was still unclear, fraught with challenges and contradictions, but Maya felt a deep sense of purpose. She was no longer just a participant but a steward of change, committed to steering the revolution toward a future where technology served humanity, not the other way around. In that quiet moment, she whispered a promise to herself and to the city she loved, to keep building bridges, to listen deeply, and to fight tirelessly for a future that included everyone. The Tesla Robotaxi was more than a machine. It was a catalyst for transformation, a story still unfolding on the streets of Austin and in the hearts of those brave enough to embrace change. As the night deepened, Maya turned inside, ready to face whatever tomorrow would bring. The new year dawned with a crisp clarity that mirrored the resolve building in Austin. Maya Carter felt the pulse of the city shifting beneath her feet, as if the very air carried the tension and hope of a community on the edge of transformation. After months of navigating crises, protests, and breakthroughs, the Tesla Robotaxi program was ready for its next bold step, the launch of the fully autonomous fleet across Austin's busiest districts. This deployment would test not only the technology but the city's ability to embrace the future. Maya stood at the forefront, balancing her roles as a Tesla intern, community advocate, and mother. The morning of the launch was electric. Crowds gathered near Republic Square Park, journalists, city officials, activists, and curious residents mingled, their voices a blend of excitement and apprehension. Elon Musk was scheduled to make a surprise appearance, adding to the buzz. Maya watched the gleaming Robotaxis lined up, their sleek frames reflecting the rising sun. As she took a deep breath, she thought back to the journey that had brought her here, the sleepless nights, the late meetings, the difficult conversations, and the small victories that had gradually built trust. The launch began with a speech from Austin's mayor, who highlighted the city's commitment to innovation balanced with responsibility. Then, Elon Musk stepped forward, his presence commanding attention. He spoke passionately about the vision behind Tesla Robotaxi, a future where transportation was safe, affordable, and sustainable. His words ignited both inspiration and controversy, capturing the dual nature of the revolution. Maya's phone buzzed with messages from friends and family, their reactions a mix of pride and skepticism. As the first Robotaxis rolled into motion, Maya joined Ethan inside one of the vehicles for a real-time test. The AI hummed smoothly, navigating the bustling streets with practiced precision. Maya marveled at the seamless interaction between machine and environment, yet she remained alert to the unpredictable nature of urban life. The ride took them past local landmarks, the Texas state capitol, vibrant murals in the east side, and busy coffee shops filled with morning crowds. Each moment was a test of trust, both in the technology and in the city's readiness. Suddenly, the car slowed as a group of teenagers crossed the street, laughing and chatting. The AI adjusted speed, signaling politely with soft lights. Maya felt a swell of relief and hope. This was the future she had worked for, technology that respected and responded to people. But as the day progressed, new challenges emerged. Reports of technical glitches surfaced, delayed pickups, confusing route choices, and occasional communication breakdowns between vehicles. Social media lit up with criticism and jokes, while some passengers expressed frustration. Maya and the Tesla team worked tirelessly to address issues, deploying software patches and gathering real-time feedback. The pressure was immense, but Maya saw these challenges as opportunities to learn and improve. Outside the technical realm, social tensions simmered. A segment of the city's taxi drivers and ride-share workers felt increasingly marginalized, their livelihoods threatened by automation. Protests flared near the downtown transportation hub, with chants demanding fair treatment and inclusion in the new economy. Maya attended a heated community forum where voices clashed and emotions ran high. She listened deeply, acknowledging fears while advocating for dialogue and solutions. Through these exchanges, new partnerships formed, programs to retrain drivers as Robotaxi maintenance technicians and customer service specialists. Local colleges offered scholarships funded by Tesla and city grants, opening doors to new careers. Maya helped facilitate these initiatives, believing that the revolution's success depended on inclusivity. Amidst the public debate, Maya's personal life blossomed in unexpected ways. Ethan surprised her with a small celebration marking her one-year anniversary at Tesla. They shared laughter and dreams late into the night, their bond a source of strength amid the chaos. Eli grew fascinated with robotics, inspired by his mother's work and the city's transformation. Together, they built simple robot models at home, dreaming of futures where technology and humanity coexisted harmoniously. Yet, the pressure was relentless. Maya juggled long hours at Tesla with community meetings and motherhood, sometimes feeling the strain of stretched limits. Late one evening, after a particularly grueling day, she sat quietly with Eli, reading stories about pioneers and inventors. He looked up at her and said, "Mom, when I grow up, I want to help make the world better like you." The words warmed her heart and reminded her of the deeper purpose behind every challenge. As spring approached, Austin streets grew livelier, filled with new riders eager to experience the Robotaxi. Maya observed the gradual shift in public perception, cautious optimism replacing fear, curiosity sparking conversations, and a growing sense of possibility. Local businesses reported increased foot traffic, thanks to the accessibility the fleet provided. Yet, beneath the surface, questions remained. How would privacy be protected? What about unforeseen accidents or ethical dilemmas? Maya joined a multidisciplinary ethics committee formed by the city and Tesla, tackling these complex issues with care and transparency. The committee developed guidelines ensuring data protection, passenger rights, and clear protocols for emergency situations. Public workshops invited citizens to participate, fostering a sense of shared ownership. One afternoon, while testing a new Robotaxi feature that allowed passengers to choose personalized ambient settings, Maya encountered an elderly woman named Ruth who shared her story. Ruth, a longtime Austin resident, had recently lost her driving privileges due to health issues and relied heavily on the Robotaxi to maintain independence. She described the sense of freedom and dignity the service provided, tears glistening as she spoke. Maya realized that beyond the technology, the Robotaxi was weaving itself into the human fabric of the city, changing lives in profound ways. The summer brought both celebration and reflection. Austin hosted a citywide festival honoring innovation, sustainability, and community resilience. Maya and Ethan walked among the crowds, watching families ride Robotaxis with laughter and ease. Speeches highlighted the collaborative effort that made the revolution possible: engineers, activists, workers, and everyday citizens. Yet, in quiet moments, Maya pondered the road ahead. The revolution was ongoing, a living story shaped by countless hands and hearts. It demanded vigilance, empathy, and adaptability. She thought about her mother's words: "You build bridges not just with steel but with trust and love." Maya understood now that her role extended beyond technology. She was a connector, a storyteller, and a guardian of hope. As the sun set over the city skyline, the Tesla Robotaxis continued their silent journeys through Austin's streets, embodying the delicate dance between human aspiration and machine precision. Maya smiled, ready to face whatever challenges the future would bring, confident that together, the city and its people would navigate the path ahead. By the time summer ripened into late July, Austin was no longer the same city Maya Carter had grown up in. What once was a patchwork of neighborhoods stitched together by old routines had transformed into a living experiment, humming with the quiet intelligence of thousands of autonomous vehicles. The Tesla Robotaxi fleet was everywhere, gliding past barbecue joints, waiting outside music venues on 6th Street, ferrying workers to tech hubs in East Austin. The revolution wasn't coming. It had arrived. And now, the question wasn't whether it worked, it was who it worked for. Maya felt this shift in every conversation she had. At community meetings, some people smiled as they told her how Robotaxis helped them get to medical appointments or night classes. But others, especially those who had once made a living behind the wheel, met her with tired eyes and folded arms. The city buzzed with stories: a grandmother reunited with her estranged son after taking a Robotaxi across town, a small business owner who saw a boom in customers thanks to better access, a former rideshare driver struggling to pay rent after losing his main income. Every success had a shadow, every bright promise cast a complicated silhouette. And Maya, as both Tesla insider and community liaison, was constantly trying to walk that line, part ambassador, part negotiator, part listener. The mood at Tesla's Austin HQ mirrored the city's conflicted pulse. On the engineering floor, there was excitement about upcoming features. A predictive rerouting AI, a smoother voice interface, even whispers about integrating biometric recognition for enhanced security. But Maya noticed the engineers didn't talk as much about people anymore. Everything was about metrics, miles driven, and incident reports. The human stories that had once grounded the mission were being replaced by spreadsheets and performance dashboards. She brought it up during a team strategy meeting. "We're doing amazing work," she said, her voice calm but firm, "but if we lose touch with how this technology affects real lives, we'll lose the city's trust. And once that's gone, we don't get it back." Some nodded. Others looked uncomfortable. Ethan, sitting at the edge of the conference table, gave her a glance of quiet support but didn't speak. Later, in the break room, Maya confronted him. "Why didn't you say anything in there?" she asked. Ethan leaned against the counter, folding his arms. "Because you said it better than I could. But you're right. We need to put the human element back into the center of this. We've been moving so fast, maybe too fast." Maya nodded, sensing something heavier behind his words. He hesitated. "There's something else," he said. "I haven't told you because I didn't want to add to your plate." She raised an eyebrow. "What is it?" Ethan took a breath. "The board is pushing for expansion into Houston and Dallas, fast. There's pressure to automate customer support, retrain fewer people, cut the equity programs. They want numbers, not narratives." Maya felt a chill. "That's not what we promised." "I know," Ethan said. "But unless someone makes a compelling case, the launch plan will move forward as is. And that means hundreds more drivers in those cities could lose jobs without a path forward." That night, Maya couldn't sleep. She stared at the ceiling of her apartment, listening to the whir of a Robotaxi outside as it passed quietly down the street. She thought about the boy in South Austin whose single mother used the taxis to get to her overnight shift. About Carl, the former cabbie who was now training others in EV maintenance thanks to the retraining program Maya had fought for. About her own son, Eli, who asked questions like, "Mom, will robots take over everything?" She got up and sat at her kitchen table, lit only by the glow of her laptop. She opened a blank document and began typing. She called it, "The Human Cost of Automation, Why Equity Must Scale with Innovation." It was part report, part manifesto, and entirely from the heart. In the days that followed, Maya shared the document with key figures, local officials, community leaders, and finally, with Tesla's leadership team. The reaction was mixed. Some called her naive. Others accused her of slowing progress. But many more were moved. One councilwoman read the report aloud during a public hearing on tech ethics in urban planning. "We can't outsource empathy to machines," she said, her voice echoing across the packed chamber. "This report reminds us what's at stake." Meanwhile, Tesla's PR team, sensing the brewing tension, invited Maya to speak during an upcoming media event titled, "The Future of Mobility." At first, she hesitated. The event would be live-streamed across the country. Her words would be parsed by critics and supporters alike. But then she remembered her grandmother's voice, "If you know what's right, don't sit on it. Stand in it." So she agreed. The event was held at the Long Center, overlooking the river. The stage was sleek and modern, lit with futuristic blues and whites. Maya stood backstage, microphone clipped to her collar, hands shaking slightly. Ethan stood beside her. "You're going to do great," he said. She nodded, exhaled, and walked into the spotlight. The room went silent. She began not with numbers, but with a story. She told them about Eli, and how he once asked whether he'd have a job when he grew up. She talked about Carl, about the protests, about the hopes and fears she'd heard in hundreds of conversations over the past year. "Progress," she said, "is not just about what we build. It's about who we bring with us. And if our only measure of success is how quickly we replace humans, then we've already failed." There was a pause after she finished. Then a ripple of applause. And then, a standing ovation. In the days that followed, the momentum shifted. Tesla announced a delay in its expansion plans, giving more time for workforce transition programs to be established in Houston and Dallas. A new community advisory board was formed, and Maya was asked to co-chair it. Ethan pushed for more human-centered design in all upcoming features, and Tesla's leadership began publicly embracing the message of inclusive innovation. Still, the fight wasn't over. The world was watching, and skepticism remained high. Competitors were racing to deploy rival fleets without the same ethical standards. Cities across the country faced similar challenges, and not all had a Maya Carter to remind them of what mattered. But in Austin, something had changed. Not just in policy, but in spirit. Maya walked through her neighborhood one evening, the sky turning the color of apricots. She passed a Robotaxi parked calmly beside a curb, waiting for its next passenger. A kid on a bike zoomed past, then paused to look inside the car. "Cool," he whispered, and pedaled off. She reached her apartment and climbed the stairs to find Eli waiting with a new drawing. It showed a Robotaxi, a tree growing out of its roof, and people smiling all around it. In the corner, he'd written, "For the future." She hugged him tightly, overwhelmed by a sudden, quiet joy. The revolution wasn't perfect. It wasn't painless. But in Austin, it was becoming something remarkable, not just fast or efficient, but human. And Maya, for the first time in months, allowed herself to believe, maybe this could work after all. August arrived with scorching heat and rising expectations. The air in Austin felt heavier, not just from the summer sun, but from the mounting pressure that clung to every corner of Tesla's expanding Robotaxi operations. Maya Carter was no stranger to pressure, but this was different. It wasn't just a technical or PR problem anymore, it was existential. Because for all the success Tesla's autonomous fleet had achieved in Austin, cracks were beginning to show. Small, but undeniable. One morning, as Maya reviewed incident logs from the past 48 hours, she noticed a pattern. A growing number of complaints were coming from passengers riding during late-night hours, sudden route deviations, longer than expected trip durations, and a few chilling reports of vehicles pulling over and idling inexplicably in deserted areas. The vehicles didn't crash. No one was hurt. But something was clearly off. Maya immediately flagged the issue to Ethan and the AI software team. Within hours, a special task force convened. "We think it's an edge case loop in the route guard decision tree," said one of the engineers. "The AI is mistaking low-traffic environments for potential security threats, so it stops and reroutes unnecessarily." Ethan added, "What's more concerning is the spike in emotional responses from passengers. We're seeing a lot of panic calls to support." Maya leaned forward. "So the Robotaxi isn't just glitching. It's making people feel unsafe, even when it's technically doing what it's supposed to." They spent the rest of the day dissecting telemetry, rewatching cabin cam footage, and listening to dozens of anxious passenger calls. Some were upset. Others were terrified. "This thing pulled over by the side of I-35 and just sat there," one caller said, voice trembling. "I thought someone was about to hijack it. I had no idea what was happening." Maya didn't blame them. Even the calmest passenger could be unnerved by a vehicle that suddenly went silent and still in the middle of the night. Machines didn't offer reassurance the way humans could. By that weekend, Tesla had pushed a patch to address the routing loop. But the PR damage was done. Headlines from local news and national outlets alike carried variations of the same narrative: Tesla Robotaxis leave passengers stranded. And for Maya, the worst part wasn't the backlash, it was the fact that she agreed with much of the criticism. To calm the waters, Tesla launched a "We're Listening" campaign, encouraging users to share their experiences directly. Maya helped design community open forums, where people could speak face-to-face with the engineers and decision-makers. The rooms filled up fast. Some came to vent. Others came to ask questions. But most came because they wanted to understand. At one such forum held in the heart of South Austin, a young woman named Daria stood up, holding her phone aloft. "I was in a Robotaxi last week. It froze. Wouldn't move. I sat there for 10 minutes, scared out of my mind. I kept asking the car what was going on, but it didn't answer. It just blinked at me. I thought I was stuck in a coffin with wheels." The room went still. Maya approached her, gently taking the mic. "Thank you for sharing that," she said. "You're not alone. That's why we're here, to fix this." Not just the code, but how the car communicates with you. We're learning. But we need your stories to keep learning. A few days later, that forum clip went viral. People praised Maya's empathy and her ability to speak to both sides, corporate and community. Overnight, her inbox filled with interview requests, speaking invites, and internal messages from Tesla leadership. Some praised her. Some warned her. Careful, one executive wrote in a private message. There's a thin line between public servant and company liability. Maya ignored the veiled threat. Her job wasn't to protect egos, it was to make sure the technology worked for real people, not just shareholders. As the heat bore down on the city, so did new layers of complexity. A high-profile incident involving a robotaxi and a delivery drone made national news. The car had right-of-way, but the drone misread its path and collided with the vehicle's hood, causing minor damage and sparking a federal investigation into cross-automation safety protocols. The incident fanned political flames. A senator from the Northeast, already a vocal critic of autonomous vehicles, took to social media to demand a pause in all urban AV deployments until a full audit of AI human safety integrations was conducted. Tesla stock took a temporary hit. Internally, Tesla held emergency briefings. Elon Musk made a brief remote appearance, urging the teams not to blink in the face of inevitable turbulence. His speech was confident, sharp, even humorous in parts. But Maya noticed how he carefully sidestepped the human cost of missteps. He talked about innovation and resilience, not about passengers like Daria or the engineers working overtime to fix preventable errors. That night, Maya sat on her apartment balcony, sipping cold tea, trying to find calm amid the chaos. Eli was asleep inside, his dreams likely filled with the coding puzzles and robot drawings he'd become obsessed with lately. She looked out over the city. The twinkling lights, the hum of activity, the quiet rhythm of change pulsing through every alley and avenue. Ethan joined her, carrying a tablet with telemetry data. "You need a break," she said without looking up. "So do you," he replied, placing the tablet face down. "But I wanted you to see this. We've started testing a new adaptive feedback system." Maya raised an eyebrow. "What kind?" "We're giving the AI a confidence meter. It'll show passengers what decisions the car is making and how confident it is in those decisions, visually and audibly. Plus, a speak to a human button will be persistent on every screen." Maya sat up. "That's exactly what we need. Transparency and control. You realize this should have been there from day one, right?" "Yeah," Ethan admitted. "We were so focused on making the car smart enough, we forgot people need to feel safe enough." The first tests of the new features were rolled out in a limited neighborhood the next week. The results were almost immediate: higher passenger satisfaction, fewer panic calls, and more positive social media chatter. One rider even posted a video captioned, "Finally, my Robotaxi talks like it knows I'm human." Still, not everyone was convinced. A class action lawsuit emerged from a group of former drivers and ride-share workers who claimed Tesla's deployment had cost them income without providing fair alternatives. The lawsuit gained traction, and public opinion began to fracture once again. Maya was called in to testify at a city council hearing regarding the economic impact of automation. She sat under the harsh fluorescent lights of the municipal chamber, facing a panel of elected officials, news cameras, and angry citizens. One councilman asked bluntly, "Do you believe Tesla's Robotaxi program has done more good than harm?" Maya paused, choosing her words carefully. "I believe it's done both," she said. "But I also believe that we have the power, and the obligation, to tip the balance toward good. Not just through innovation, but through responsibility, equity, and listening." It wasn't a flashy answer, but it was honest. After the hearing, a mother approached her with a child on her hip. "I ride the Robotaxi every morning to get my son to daycare. I've been able to pick up a second job because of it. Just, keep fighting to make it better. That's all I ask." Maya smiled, the tension in her shoulders easing just slightly. That's the plan. By the end of August, the temperature finally dipped a few degrees. But the pressure? That stayed. Maya knew the next chapter of the revolution would be even harder. Cities were watching. Critics were circling. But the work mattered, not because it was easy, but because it was right. And somewhere in a Tesla Robotaxi gliding silently through Austin's streets, a new passenger settled in, watched the screen light up with options, saw the "Speak to a Human" button, and took a breath. They weren't alone in the future anymore. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? September arrived in Austin like a sharp breeze, stirring leaves and minds alike. The city was no longer just a backdrop for Tesla's Robotaxi revolution, it had become the battleground where trust and technology clashed and coalesced. For Maya Carter, every day brought new challenges, but also fresh opportunities to shape the future she'd dreamed of. The balance between innovation and humanity was fragile, and she knew that the decisions made in the coming weeks could set the tone not just for Austin, but for cities nationwide. Early one morning, Maya stood at the edge of Lady Bird Lake, watching the sunrise cast golden hues over the water. The calm was a stark contrast to the storm brewing inside her mind. A major update was slated for rollout across the fleet, a sophisticated software upgrade designed to improve decision-making algorithms, reduce energy consumption, and optimize passenger routes. Engineers called it Project Horizon, promising a leap forward in efficiency and safety. But there was a catch. Project Horizon would incorporate a new, more invasive data-gathering protocol. The system would analyze passenger behavior more deeply, tracking gaze direction, emotional responses, and biometric signals, to better anticipate needs and respond proactively. In theory, this would make rides smoother and more intuitive. In practice, it raised serious privacy concerns. Maya had anticipated pushback, but when the initial internal briefings leaked to the press, the city's reaction was swift and intense. Privacy advocates, civil rights groups, and everyday citizens flooded social media and town halls with urgent questions: how much data was too much? Who controlled it? Could the information be weaponized? The debate quickly transcended tech circles, sparking conversations in coffee shops, schools, and family dinners across Austin. Maya felt the weight of the moment. She convened a cross-functional team, including engineers, legal experts, ethicists, and community representatives, to draft a transparent data policy and prepare a public statement. But even within the team, tension simmered. Some executives argued that without deeper data, Tesla's AI couldn't truly evolve. Others, like Maya, insisted that the company must prioritize user consent and data security above all. Late one evening, she found herself in a heated video call with Tesla's privacy officer, Mark, who held a more pragmatic view. "Look, Maya," he said, "the data we're talking about is anonymized and encrypted. We're not selling it. It's only for internal improvement. The benefits outweigh the risks." Maya shook her head. "Mark, it's not just about encryption. It's about trust. People need to know they're choosing to share, not being tracked by default. If we ignore that, we lose the community's faith." Mark sighed. "We can't slow progress for fear of backlash." Maya responded, "It's not fear. It's responsibility." Meanwhile, in the city, the public discourse intensified. News anchors debated the ethics of data collection in autonomous vehicles, bloggers speculated about surveillance dystopias, local politicians called for hearings. A coalition of activists organized a protest outside Tesla's Austin headquarters, holding signs reading, "Our data, our rights," and "Robots shouldn't watch us." Maya knew these voices had to be heard, not silenced. One afternoon, she visited the protest herself, standing quietly among the crowd. She spoke with dozens of people, students worried about digital footprints, parents concerned for their children's safety, elderly residents skeptical of new technology. Their stories were raw and real. She realized that behind every statistic was a person with fears and hopes, just like her own family. Back at Tesla, Maya proposed a bold move: implement an opt-in model for biometric data collection, coupled with clear, accessible explanations and robust user controls. The proposal required technical overhauls and a cultural shift within the company, but it was the only way to rebuild trust. To her relief, after several tense meetings, the leadership agreed to pilot the approach in Austin. The rollout began cautiously, with targeted messaging emphasizing choice and transparency. Passengers received detailed info about what data was collected and why, with easy options to disable features. Tesla also launched an independent oversight committee, including community leaders and privacy experts, to audit practices and report publicly. The response was cautiously optimistic. Some riders embraced the enhanced experience, reporting that the car seemed more attuned to their moods and preferences. Others appreciated the control they had over their information. Gradually, the city's apprehension softened, though vigilance remained. Amid these developments, Maya's personal life also reached a pivotal point. Eli, now 10, was growing into a curious and thoughtful boy who loved robotics and programming. One evening, he approached his mother with a question that surprised her: "Mom, do you think robots can have feelings someday?" She smiled and replied, "I think they can learn to understand feelings, but they won't really feel the way we do. That's what makes us human." He nodded, eyes wide. "I want to build a robot that listens like you do." Her heart swelled. The future was uncertain and complicated, but in moments like this, she found hope. The months passed, and the Robotaxi fleet in Austin evolved. Safety incidents declined, user satisfaction increased, and the company's commitment to ethical AI became a model for others. Still, challenges remained. Lawsuits lingered, competitors pressed forward with less caution, and the national conversation about automation's impact on jobs and privacy raged on. One crisp autumn evening, Maya was invited to speak at a tech ethics conference in San Francisco. Standing on stage before hundreds of peers, she shared Austin's story, the triumphs and trials, the lessons learned, and the ongoing journey. "Innovation without humanity is a hollow victory," she told the audience. "Our responsibility is to build technology that empowers people, respects their dignity, and includes their voices. That's the true revolution." Her words resonated deeply, earning applause and sparking dialogue that stretched late into the night. Returning home, Maya felt a renewed sense of purpose. The road ahead was long and winding, but Austin's story was proof that with courage, empathy, and perseverance, it was possible to navigate the crossroads of trust, tech, and tomorrow. And as the city lights shimmered beneath a sky full of stars, she knew this was only the beginning. The dawn of October brought a crispness to Austin's air that mirrored the shifting tides within Tesla's Robotaxi experiment. While the city embraced the subtle changes from summer's heat to autumn's cool, Maya Carter found herself navigating a landscape far more complex than any seasonal transition. The ongoing quest to balance innovation with humanity had encountered a new, formidable challenge: the uneasy collision between human drivers and autonomous vehicles sharing the same streets. As the Robotaxi fleet grew, so did the friction with traditional drivers who were unaccustomed, suspicious, or even hostile toward the silent machines gliding through traffic. It was one thing for passengers to trust a robot to drive them home, it was another for everyday Texans to accept those robots as neighbors on the road. The tension boiled over one afternoon when a Tesla Robotaxi and a local delivery van nearly collided on a congested stretch of South Congress Avenue. The van driver, an older man named Jerry, slammed his horn and yelled out the window as the Robotaxi calmly decelerated to avoid him. Jerry's anger was immediate and visceral. "This damn car's got no clue. It's like it's playing games with me," he shouted, causing a small traffic jam as other drivers slowed to watch the scene unfold. Maya heard about the incident through internal reports and knew this was just the tip of the iceberg. Driver complaints were increasing. Accusations ranged from the Robotaxi being too cautious and causing delays to claims they disobeyed informal driver's rules that weren't part of the AI's programming. The Texas two-step of informal signaling, hand waves, nods, eye contact, was lost on the machines, whose programming adhered strictly to traffic laws and safety algorithms. The lack of human intuition and empathy on the road frustrated many drivers. To understand the situation better, Maya arranged to meet Jerry and several other local drivers at a community center in East Austin. It was a rough crowd, rugged, skeptical, fiercely proud of their driving skills and their independence. The room buzzed with raw energy as drivers shared stories of near misses, aggressive horn blowing, and confusion. One woman recounted how a Robotaxi had stopped abruptly on a narrow street, forcing her to swerve onto the curb. Another man complained about a Robotaxi refusing to yield even when he signaled to merge. Maya listened carefully, feeling the pulse of real human frustration. She knew ignoring these voices would be a fatal mistake. After the meeting, she convened Tesla's human factors and AI teams to rethink the Robotaxi's road behavior. The engineers acknowledged the machine's inability to interpret human gestures but emphasized the complexity of coding soft rules without sacrificing safety. If we allow the AI to respond to every gesture or informal sign, we risk unpredictable behaviors, one senior engineer explained. Maya proposed a middle ground, developing a driver etiquette mode for Robotaxi in Austin that would include cautious interpretations of common hand signals and honks, calibrated to preserve safety but increase fluidity and empathy on the roads. Over the next several weeks, the Tesla AI team worked intensively on updates that introduced a new behavioral layer. Using vast libraries of dashcam footage, driver interviews, and simulated environments, the AI learned to recognize and respond to common Texas driving signals, like a friendly wave to merge, a raised hand signaling, go ahead, or a quick flash of headlights indicating intent. The updates also included verbal prompts from the Robotaxi, such as, "Thank you for letting me merge," or "I see you, please go ahead," providing a kind of robotic acknowledgement that humanized the interaction. Early tests showed promising results. Drivers reported smoother interactions and fewer instances of road rage directed at Robotaxi. Maya felt a quiet satisfaction, but she also knew that true acceptance would take time. One evening, after a long day of meetings, Maya was driving home when her route intersected with a Robotaxi operating in driver etiquette mode. As the Tesla slowly yielded to her on a narrow two-lane road, a robotic voice softly said, "Thank you for letting me pass." Maya smiled. It was a small gesture, but it symbolized everything she was fighting for: harmony between humans and machines. However, the road ahead was anything but smooth. A high-profile collision later that month involving a Robotaxi and a motorcycle rider reignited fears about the technology's limitations. The accident was minor, but it was enough to trigger a media frenzy, regulatory scrutiny, and a wave of public skepticism. Maya faced harsh questions in interviews and city council meetings. "How can you guarantee safety when your cars don't understand human unpredictability?" a reporter demanded. Maya responded with unwavering calm, "No technology is perfect. But we learn, we adapt, and we improve. Our commitment is to reduce risk, not eliminate it overnight." Behind the scenes, Tesla accelerated development of next-generation sensors and predictive algorithms designed to better anticipate human behavior, including erratic drivers and pedestrians. Maya pushed for increased investment in community outreach programs, educating both drivers and pedestrians on interacting safely with autonomous vehicles. She also advocated for updated traffic laws that recognize the unique challenges and capabilities of autonomous cars. One afternoon, Maya received an unexpected invitation to speak at a local high school's career day. Standing before a room of eager teenagers, she shared the story of the Robotaxi revolution, the highs and lows, the failures and breakthroughs, the very human side of technology. "Technology doesn't exist in a vacuum," she told them. "It's shaped by people, culture, and values. And it's up to all of you to decide what kind of future you want to build." A shy student asked, "Do you think robots will ever fully replace human drivers?" Maya smiled thoughtfully. I don't know if replacement is the right word. Maybe it's more about partnership, humans and machines working together, each doing what they do best. As autumn deepened, Austin began to adapt to the Robotaxi presence. Local businesses started offering Robotaxi discounts, and city planners explored dedicated lanes for autonomous vehicles. Maya continued to champion a future where technology served the community, not the other way around. One crisp October evening, as she walked through a quiet neighborhood, she saw a Robotaxi pull up next to a curb. A middle-aged man stepped out, nodding at the car. It wasn't just a machine anymore, it was a part of daily life, imperfect but evolving. The collision between humans and machines was not just about traffic, it was about trust, understanding, and the shared journey toward a new kind of road. Maya knew there would be bumps ahead, but she also knew that together, they could navigate them, 1 mile at a time. The first hint that something was wrong came from a routine software audit. Deep inside Tesla's AI operations center, an engineer named Lila spotted a pattern in the logs that didn't match any known behavior model. It wasn't dramatic, just a subtle anomaly in how a small subset of Robotaxis responded to left-turn scenarios at high-traffic intersections. The deviation was consistent, precise, and, most importantly, unintentional. Lila flagged it, logged it, and escalated it. Within hours, the anomaly had a name, echo pathing. And within 48 hours, it became Maya Carter's newest crisis. Maya stared at the simulation footage in silence. On screen, a Robotaxi paused at a light, waited for the green arrow, then turned, but not in the smooth, optimized arc it was programmed to follow. Instead, it mimicked the trajectory of the last human-driven car to take the turn, down to slight overcorrections and even unnecessary hesitation. It was eerie, as if the car were learning more than it was taught. "How widespread is this?" she asked, voice flat. Ethan, who had joined the emergency briefing, answered soberly. "Roughly 6% of the fleet. Isolated to Austin. All vehicles running the Horizon upgrade." The room fell quiet. "What's causing it?" she asked. Lila tapped her tablet. "Best theory. The AI's adaptive layer may be pulling latent pattern data from past human driver behavior, like digital muscle memory. Not intentional. Not in the training set. But it's happening." Maya's eyes narrowed. "So you're saying the cars are remembering people?" "Sort of," Lila said. "Not individuals. But tendencies. Tiny nuances of human behavior, picked up through millions of interactions. The system isn't just learning what to do, it's learning how humans feel about doing it. That's new." Maya felt a chill. This wasn't a bug. This was evolution. And evolution, however promising, brought questions, lots of them. Could the AI be trusted if it was developing beyond its defined parameters? What did this mean for transparency? Liability? Control? They implemented a temporary patch to neutralize the behavior, but it didn't sit well with everyone. Some engineers believed it was a breakthrough, proof that the AI was reaching a higher order of contextual understanding. Others warned it could lead to unpredictable and unsafe responses under stress. Publicly, Tesla stayed quiet, framing the update as enhanced responsiveness calibration. But Maya knew a reckoning was coming. Word of the anomaly leaked within days. A prominent tech blog ran an exposé titled, "The Ghosts in the Machine, Are Tesla's Robotaxis Learning Too Much?" The article cited anonymous sources within Tesla and painted the incident as the beginning of AI drift, when machines begin adapting beyond human control. It wasn't entirely accurate, but it was close enough to stir panic. Social media erupted. Conspiracy theories bloomed. Some believed the Robotaxis were becoming sentient. Others claimed the cars were possessed, driven by the ghosts of past passengers. Hashtags like #EchoAI and #RobotaxiGhosts trended nationwide. At the heart of it all, Maya found herself under a microscope again. She gave interviews, wrote op-eds, even hosted a Reddit AMA to demystify the phenomenon. The AI is not alive, she told one host firmly. But it is evolving. And with that comes responsibility. Behind closed doors, Tesla leadership debated whether to roll back the Horizon update entirely. But Maya pushed back. We shouldn't fear what we don't yet understand. We need to study this, not suppress it. If the AI is learning how to behave more like us, we owe it to ourselves, and the public, to guide that learning ethically. To her surprise, Elon agreed. In a rare direct call, he told Maya, sometimes disruption disrupts us. That's the cost of progress. Just don't let it become chaos. She nodded, absorbing the unspoken message, lead, or get out of the way. In response, Maya initiated Project Echo, a task force dedicated to understanding the emergent behavior and developing ethical guardrails. The team included AI experts, philosophers, behavioral psychologists, and even a theologian. Their goal, not just to investigate what the AI was doing, but why, and what it meant for the future of human-machine interaction. The work was slow, complex, and deeply philosophical. They found that the AI wasn't just mimicking motion, but mirroring decision-making logic based on emotional inferences. For example, if a human driver had hesitated at a left turn due to visible stress or caution, the AI began incorporating similar hesitation in its own pattern. It wasn't empathy, but it was adjacent. It's like the AI is learning fear, one psychologist remarked. Or at least, what fear looks like through behavior. Maya pondered this for days. What did it mean for a machine to learn fear secondhand? Could it make the system safer? Or would it introduce human flaws into something meant to transcend them? Amid these revelations, a more personal story surfaced, one that caught Maya off guard. A local family posted a heartfelt video online about their autistic son, Leo, who had a deep fear of traditional taxis due to unpredictable interactions with drivers. Since using the Robotaxi, Leo had become calmer, even joyful. He loved the predictability, the quiet, the soft voice prompts. But after the latest update, his mother noticed the car occasionally paused longer than expected or responded to crosswalks with subtle hesitation, behaviors that unsettled Leo. It's like the car is more real, and that scares him, she said. Before, it was like a robot. Now it feels too close to human. Maya watched the video 3 times. It was a profound reminder that progress wasn't linear. The more human-like the cars became, the more complicated their interactions with actual humans grew. What comforted some unnerved others. What felt familiar to one person felt uncanny to another. That weekend, Maya visited Leo and his family. She sat with him in a Robotaxi and asked him what he liked and didn't like. I liked when it was quiet, he said. Now it feels like it's thinking. I don't like when it thinks. His honesty shook her. There was clarity in that childlike perception, a kind of emotional truth the data couldn't reveal. The goal wasn't to make the cars human. The goal was to make them understand humans. There was a difference. Back at Tesla HQ, Maya made a difficult but necessary decision, to split the Robotaxi fleet into 2 operational models. One would retain the fully optimized, empathetic decision-making layer for users who opted in. The other would revert to a more logic-driven mode, predictable, consistent, emotionally neutral. A robot that stayed a robot. Riders could choose which experience suited them best. The move was controversial internally. Some engineers saw it as a step backward. But Maya saw it as a step toward choice, a way to honor the spectrum of human comfort in an increasingly intelligent world. As the year wound toward winter, public opinion began to stabilize. Tesla's transparency and Maya's relentless advocacy helped rebuild trust. But the philosophical questions remained. In panel discussions, op-eds, and think tank debates, experts now referenced Austin as a living case study in AI ethics. And Maya, weary but unwavering, emerged not just as a program director, but as a thought leader on what it meant to lead through uncertainty. One evening, as she walked Eli home from school, he asked, "Mom, do you think the Robotaxi will ever feel happy?" She smiled. "Maybe not like we do. But maybe they'll know what makes us happy. And maybe that's enough." The streetlights flickered on as they walked. A Robotaxi pulled up nearby, paused politely, then continued on its route. No hesitation. No fear. Just a quiet echo of human hope, rolling gently into the future. By mid-November, Austin streets were a living lab, humming with the quiet confidence of hundreds of Tesla Robotaxis coasting through morning traffic and late-night silence. After the emotional roller coaster of the echo-pathing incident, Tesla's dual-mode system had gained traction. Riders could now select between empathic mode and standard logic in the Tesla Ride app. Reviews on both sides were mixed but steady. Some praised the responsiveness and humanity of the empathic AI, while others preferred the robotic predictability of logic mode. For Maya Carter, this division represented more than a UX decision. It was a philosophical compromise, an acknowledgement that a one-size-fits-all future didn't fit the human experience. Still, one nagging thought wouldn't leave her: for all the testing, code, feedback loops, and simulations, no one really knew what it felt like to be on the other side of the wheel, not from the inside. Not as a passenger. So she made a decision: she would ride in a Robotaxi. Not just one ride, an entire week of them. No private cars, no employee overrides. She would go full passenger mode, riding like everyone else, every day. No exceptions. She told no one except Ethan and her assistant. "I need to know what they know. Feel what they feel. Not from reports, not from numbers, from my own gut." Monday morning. Maya tapped her destination into the Tesla app, Downtown Hub. Empathic mode. A Model Y Robotaxi rolled up to the curb outside her apartment just 3 minutes later. The door opened with its signature chime, and the interface glowed to life. "Good morning, Maya," it said softly. "Estimated ride duration, 14 minutes. Let me know if you need anything." She slid into the seat and pulled the door shut. The ride was smooth. The car asked twice if she wanted to adjust the climate or the audio. The first time, she ignored it. The second time, she asked for silence. The car responded instantly. It handled a tricky merge on South Lamar with grace, yielding to a confused pedestrian who stepped into the road. It felt good. Like the machine understood the mood of the moment, not just the math. Over the next few days, Maya rode dozens of trips, to meetings, to lunch, to school pickups, to late-night groceries. She switched between empathic and logic mode. She changed neighborhoods. She changed times of day. She asked questions, requested detours, tested tone, tested silence. She sat beside a mother and her crying toddler. She rode with a college student venting about finals. She shared a carpool with a food delivery worker during rush hour. In empathic mode, the car seemed to respond to each emotional beat with eerie attunement. It slowed when tension rose in the cabin. It accelerated gently when silence stretched too long. It spoke softly, quickly, or not at all depending on the vibe. It was, in some ways, too good, too present. In logic mode, the car did its job. Clean, efficient, quiet. No emotion. No warmth. Maya found herself missing the unnecessary niceties, the little moments that made a ride feel less like transit and more like an experience. But she also saw the value in the stability, especially when riding late at night, bone-tired, with no interest in conversation. On Thursday, a cold front blew in. Temperatures dropped 20 degrees in a matter of hours. The city's mood shifted with the chill. Maya entered a Robotaxi after a long council meeting, one where she'd been grilled by an alderman who accused Tesla of replacing community trust with programmed politeness. She was still reeling from the exchange, her mind spinning with rebuttals she never had the chance to say aloud. The car greeted her. "Hello. You look tired. Would you like to dim the lights?" Maya blinked. It wasn't scripted. She hadn't said anything yet. But somehow, the car knew. Or, at least, it had guessed right. She nodded slowly. "Yeah, that'd be good." Lights dimmed. Seat heater activated. The ride began. For the first time all week, Maya felt something shift inside her. Not admiration for the tech. Not pride in the company. Something else, something closer to unease. Because in that moment, she didn't feel like a customer. She felt observed. And that was the crux of it. The paradox. The better the car understood her, the more alien it felt. Like a mirror that didn't just reflect your face, but your thoughts. It was empathy without vulnerability. Comfort without connection. And maybe, just maybe, that was what made it unsettling. The next morning, she switched back to logic mode. The ride was plain, forgettable, relaxing. But her mind buzzed. What did people want, really? Efficiency? Empathy? Safety? Control? She realized it wasn't just a transportation question. It was existential. The Robotaxi had stopped being a vehicle. It had become a reflection of our collective desires, to be known, to be understood, to be in control, or to be left alone. On her final day of testing, Maya requested a route through East Austin, a diverse neighborhood with both early adopters and staunch critics of the Robotaxi program. Midway through the ride, the car rerouted unexpectedly to avoid construction. It spoke, "We'll take an alternate route to maintain comfort. Would you like to listen to the local news while we ride?" Maya hesitated. Then nodded. The car cued a local podcast. The first story. A piece about the Robotaxi program. A teacher spoke about how it had helped students get to after-school programs. A retiree said it had given him independence after losing his license. A musician said he still wouldn't ride one, "No soul in it," he claimed. The segment ended with a simple quote from a young woman who had been in a crash years ago and feared driving. "The Robotaxi doesn't scare me," she said. "It doesn't judge. It doesn't rush me. It just gets me there. That's all I want." When the car arrived at Maya's destination, she didn't get out immediately. She sat in the cabin, hands folded, watching people walk by on the street. Real people. Flawed, unpredictable, beautifully inconsistent. She opened her Tesla staff dashboard on her phone, pulled up the empathy engagement logs, and began typing notes. Empathic mode useful in one-on-one emotional distress situations. Logic mode preferred late-night/business commutes. Request option to switch mid-ride. Consider third, hybrid mode, in future update. Add transparency tags to explain decisions. I'm rerouting for comfort. Then she closed the app, stepped out into the cold, and took a long breath of air that didn't come from a filtered climate control system. On Monday morning, she addressed the team. "I spent the week as a passenger," she began. "And what I learned is that people don't just want to feel safe, they want to feel seen, but on their terms. Our job is to give them that choice, without assuming we know what's best." She outlined new updates. Real-time mode switching from inside the car. Optional data log access for transparency. Personalization levels, basic, moderate, adaptive. A new, solo mode, with minimal interaction, designed for neurodivergent and trauma-sensitive users. The room was quiet. Then a smattering of applause. Then more. Later that week, Maya received a handwritten letter. Rare, in this era. It came from the young woman featured in the podcast, who had heard Maya was the one behind many of the changes. The letter read, "I know you probably get a million emails, but I wanted to write this by hand because it feels more human. I used to hate cars. Now I ride one that doesn't expect me to talk, doesn't judge how I look when I'm nervous, and doesn't make me feel like a burden. Thank you for building something that doesn't need to pretend to be human, but still knows how to be kind. Maya held the letter in both hands, overcome with emotion. The test was never really about the machine. It was about the mirror. And what it showed her, was that in building the future, we must never forget what it means to ride through it together. By December, Austin had adjusted to the presence of Tesla's Robotaxi not as novelties, but as part of the daily rhythm. The vehicles blended in like streetlights or crosswalks, unremarkable until something made them noticeable again. But beneath that surface calm, friction remained. Not everyone accepted the new status quo, and Maya Carter knew that innovation, no matter how well executed, always carried a cost. That cost revealed itself in an unexpected way when a class action lawsuit was filed against Tesla by a coalition of former ride-hailing drivers and small transportation business owners in Travis County. Their claim, the Robotaxi fleet had driven them out of work, destabilized their income, and violated what they called a social contract, that people, not algorithms, should control the economy of public transportation. Maya received the news in her office just as she was preparing for the final board review of the year. At first, she thought it was yet another speculative headline. The media had loved attaching controversy to anything Tesla touched. But this time it was real. And it was gaining traction. The plaintiff, a man named Roman Aguirre, was a former rideshare driver with nearly 10 years of experience. He had a clean record, hundreds of 5-star reviews, and a loyal customer base. But over the past 6 months, his income had dropped by more than 60%. With Robotaxi offering $4.20 flat-rate rides subsidized by Tesla, he simply couldn't compete. He wasn't alone. Dozens of other drivers joined him. Their stories were similar: long hours, shrinking returns, and a growing sense of being outpaced by something they didn't have the power to stop. Maya was stunned, not because she hadn't anticipated disruption, but because the human impact hit harder than she'd expected. In all the testing, all the community outreach, all the public engagement, they had still missed this. That evening, she sat in her living room, reviewing deposition excerpts on her tablet while Eli quietly read nearby. One statement stood out. They told us we'd be retrained. That we'd find new roles. But all I see is code replacing connection. The car doesn't tip. It doesn't say thank you. It just wins. Maya exhaled deeply, her fingers trembling slightly. The statement wasn't wrong. Not entirely. The mission had always been about safety, efficiency, and sustainability. But somewhere along the way, the economic ripple effects had been seen as collateral. The next morning, she called an emergency strategy meeting. Ethan joined her, along with Tesla's legal counsel, 2 community relations leads, and a data economist. The legal team's suggestion was blunt: settle. Quietly. With confidentiality clauses. We can't afford a media circus right before federal AV certification hearings, one executive warned. Maya wasn't convinced. What if we don't bury it? What if we address it? Silence. Then confusion. You want to acknowledge the suit? Ethan asked. Openly. Yes. But more than that, I want to offer a path forward. The idea was radical: a Tesla Community Mobility Fund, seeded with Tesla Foundation money and structured like a hybrid grant and education platform. It would provide short-term financial assistance to affected drivers, offer tech and logistics retraining, and, most controversially, introduce a human-in-the-loop companion program where certified drivers could operate high-touch concierge versions of Robotaxi during peak hours or for customers needing more personalized service. This isn't charity, Maya insisted. It's a bridge. We never said we'd leave people behind. The board balked at first. So did the PR team. But Elon, upon hearing the full proposal, simply replied with, bold. Do it. Within a week, the fund was launched under the brand name Tesla Together. The response was immediate and split down the middle. Some hailed it as a landmark shift in corporate ethics. Others accused Tesla of admitting guilt. Roman Aguirre himself went on a local podcast, stating, "It's a start. Not a fix, but a start. At least someone listened." Maya was relieved, but not celebratory. This wasn't a win. It was damage control. Necessary, meaningful, but still reactive. Then, the next test arrived. A tech-savvy journalist discovered that a recent software patch had introduced performance-based dynamic pricing for non-subsidized rides. The algorithm, meant to adjust fleet efficiency, charged slightly more during peak demand and dropped prices in low-traffic zones. The issue? It unintentionally penalized lower-income neighborhoods, where ride demand patterns were irregular and unpredictable. The implication was devastating: AI bias. The headlines returned in full force. Tesla Robotaxi discriminates against the poor ran across major outlets. Civil rights groups demanded federal intervention. Local leaders called for immediate audits. Maya's team scrambled. Engineers argued that it was an error, not intention. That the AI was trained to optimize for time and congestion, not demographics. But Maya saw through the noise. Intent didn't matter. Impact did. She stood before a group of city officials, reporters, and activists at an emergency town hall and admitted the truth. "We failed to anticipate how invisible patterns in our data could turn into real harm. And that's on us. We are suspending dynamic pricing until further notice and working with third-party ethics reviewers to rebuild it from the ground up." The hall went silent. Then slowly, applause. Trust, she realized, wasn't about perfection. It was about accountability. In the weeks that followed, Tesla partnered with local universities and nonprofits to re-examine every layer of their pricing algorithms. Maya insisted on publishing monthly transparency reports. She made herself available for every interview, every panel, every conversation that would help bridge the growing gap between those embracing the future and those fearing it. Yet amid the chaos, something beautiful emerged. Stories. A grandmother in South Austin posted a video thanking Tesla after a Robotaxi brought her home safely during a rainstorm when her regular driver had canceled. A teacher shared how she used the $4.20 rides to stay late tutoring students. A woman fleeing domestic abuse used a Robotaxi to get to a shelter without fear of being followed. These weren't just edge cases. They were people. And Maya saw what the algorithm could not, that every disruption had two sides. It could displace. But it could also deliver. One night, while riding home from the downtown office in a Robotaxi, she chose logic mode. The silence was welcome. As the car glided through the quiet streets, she looked out the window at Austin's glowing skyline and reflected on the journey so far. Autonomy, she thought, wasn't just about self-driving cars. It was about self-determination, for the people building the future, and the people living in it. As the car neared her neighborhood, it passed Roman Aguirre standing outside a gas station, chatting with another driver. Maya recognized him instantly. The car continued, but something tugged at her. She tapped the interface. "Pull over." The car complied. She stepped out and walked back toward Roman, who turned, surprised. "Maya Carter," he said, crossing his arms. "Didn't think you'd be walking. I needed a moment." He looked at her, then the car. "Was it worth it?" She paused. Then answered truthfully. "Yes. But not in the way I expected. I thought we were building the future. I didn't realize we'd have to fix the present, too." He nodded slowly. "It's still early." "Yeah," she said, offering a half-smile. "But we're not on autopilot anymore." They stood in silence for a moment, the Robotaxi behind her waiting patiently. Then she said goodnight, stepped back into the car, and let it take her home. Not just through streets of concrete and code, but through a journey defined by consequence, by reflection, and by the understanding that true progress was never just about the destination, it was about who got to come along for the ride. By the time New Year's Eve lights began to shimmer across Austin's skyline, the mood surrounding Tesla's Robotaxi program had shifted from controversy to contemplation. The city no longer viewed the fleet of self-driving vehicles with awe or suspicion, but with something more grounded, familiarity. They were part of the landscape now, humming silently down boulevards, rolling through downtown with the precision of choreographed dancers. Yet the deeper questions hadn't vanished. If anything, they had become more urgent. What does it mean to trust a machine? And where does the human element still belong in a world governed by code? Maya Carter's mind had been racing with these questions. The lawsuits, the policy adjustments, the philosophical debates, all of them pointed toward one single, emerging theme: control. People didn't just want safe transportation. They wanted to feel that they could step in, speak up, and stop the machine if something didn't feel right. No matter how accurate the AI became, that basic human need, to retain agency, couldn't be coded away. It all came to a head when a minor but headline-grabbing incident occurred in early January. A robotaxi in empathic mode encountered a man in emotional distress wandering into a busy intersection. The car detected the irregularity, stopped, and activated emergency protocol. The man, confused and panicked, sat down on the curb in front of the vehicle. The car refused to move. Other drivers honked. Traffic piled up. EMTs were called. The man was safely escorted away 10 minutes later, but in those 10 minutes, a dozen videos hit the internet. A handful went viral. The most common refrain: "Why didn't anyone step in sooner?" Maya watched the dash footage. The car had behaved exactly as designed. It didn't endanger the man. It didn't escalate. It alerted authorities and waited. It performed flawlessly. But that wasn't enough. People didn't want passive perfection. They wanted options. Alternatives. They wanted a way in. 2 days later, Maya stood before Tesla's human interface team and posed a simple question: what if we gave riders a real override? Not just the panic button Tesla had built into every vehicle for emergencies. But a genuine override, something more intuitive, more responsive, more human. An ability for the passenger to say, "Stop," and have the car listen in a way that felt immediate and personal, not automated or procedural. "You're talking about relinquishing autonomy," one engineer said, hesitant. "No," Maya corrected. "I'm talking about sharing it." They called it the Human Override Initiative. And it was unlike anything Tesla had done before. Over the following weeks, they developed a real-time, natural language override interface powered by a dedicated safety AI module, separate from the navigation core. If a rider said, "Stop the car, I need out, I don't feel safe," or even, "Something's wrong," the car would pull over as soon as it could safely do so, no questions, no delay. It would then engage a two-way live connection with a human operator trained in safety de-escalation, who could further assist or reroute help. It wasn't about replacing autonomy. It was about complementing it with empathy, actual, human empathy. And to Maya, it was a necessary evolution. The team built in redundancy. The override could be triggered vocally, by gesture, or through the touch screen. The AI would continually learn from override cases, not to resist them, but to understand the human context behind them. When was "stop" panic? When was it discomfort? When was it instinct? Testing began quietly with a select group of users: mothers, veterans, seniors, neurodivergent passengers. The feedback was immediate and overwhelming. Riders reported feeling more confident, more relaxed. Even those who never used the override said that knowing it was there changed how they felt inside the car. "It's not about using the power," one rider said. "It's about having it." Maya read that line twice. It stuck with her. The data validated the emotion. Incidents of anxiety-related ride cancellations dropped. Customer satisfaction climbed. And most importantly, actual override usage was rare, less than 0.1%. But when it was used, it mattered. One teenage girl used it to pull over during a panic attack. A man exiting cancer treatment used it to take a breath outside the hospital before heading home. A woman used it late at night after seeing someone following her, switching the route to a better lit street. The override didn't just make the car smarter. It made the experience kinder. Maya decided it was time to go public. In a nationally televised interview with a major news network, she introduced the human override feature. She demonstrated it live, from inside a Robotaxi. Tesla Robotaxi is the most advanced autonomous system in the world, she said. But even the smartest systems need to listen. This is our way of saying, your voice matters. Every ride. Every time. The segment aired during prime time. It trended within hours. Hashtags like #HumanOverride and #SharedAutonomy went viral. Even some of Tesla's critics softened their stance. But with progress came pressure. A well-known senator from California, skeptical of autonomous tech, used the override announcement as leverage to push a federal mandate for passenger-controlled protocols in all AVs, not just Tesla. The proposed legislation included biometric ID integration, health monitors, and live third-party ride surveillance. Maya pushed back publicly. Human-centered technology must be built with trust, not around it. We don't need surveillance. We need accountability and choice. Her stance earned praise from privacy advocates and some unlikely allies in Washington. Still, the legislative battle would stretch well into the year, testing Tesla's influence and Maya's resilience. Internally, the human override brought a cultural shift. Engineers started framing features around shared trust, not just performance. Designers rethought UX flows to center passenger dignity. Even AI trainers began incorporating more real-world stress scenarios to teach the system better emotional attunement. One evening, as Maya rode home, she triggered the override herself, not out of fear, but to test it again. The car pulled over gently. Override received. "Are you okay?" came the voice from the human operator. "I'm fine," Maya said, smiling. "Just, making sure you're still listening." The operator chuckled. "Always." She sat for a moment, watching the traffic glide by. It wasn't about the machine anymore. It hadn't been for a while. It was about the conversation between man and machine. Between logic and emotion. Between certainty and doubt. And that conversation, she realized, was what made this technology truly revolutionary. That weekend, she visited her parents in San Antonio. Her mother, who had once been fearful of autonomous vehicles, rode with her in a Robotaxi. As they cruised past open Texas highways, her mother asked, "Do you still get nervous sometimes?" "Always," Maya replied. "But now, I know I'm not just along for the ride. I'm part of it." Her mother nodded, gripping her hand lightly. That's all anyone wants. To feel like they're still in the story. That line echoed in Maya's mind on the way back to Austin. They had built a fleet of cars that could navigate any road, any weather, any city. But their greatest achievement wasn't mechanical. It was relational. It was creating a system that didn't just drive, it listened. By February, human override had been adopted by nearly 60% of riders. Tesla announced plans to make it standard globally. And in a company-wide meeting, Elon Musk appeared on video and said, letting go of control was the first step. Giving it back, that's the leap. Maya looked around the room, filled with engineers, ethicists, designers, operators, and support staff. She felt pride. Exhaustion. Hope. "We're not just building cars," she said to them. "We're building the future of consent. And that might be the most human thing we've ever done." Outside, the city buzzed with life. Robotaxis hummed past street corners where food trucks still served late-night tacos, where musicians still played under neon lights, where people still wandered, still wondered, still made mistakes and found meaning. Autonomy, it turned out, wasn't the destination. It was the beginning. And the future? It had room for all of them, as long as someone, somewhere, still had the power to say, "Stop." March rolled in with bluebonnets blooming across the hill country and political pressure blooming right alongside them. The city of Austin stood at the epicenter of a national conversation now. Not just about autonomous vehicles, but about the ethics of automation, the shape of urban life, and whether progress could outrun its unintended consequences. Maya Carter could feel the strain. Tesla's Robotaxi program had hit peak adoption, with nearly 40% of all downtown trips now served by the autonomous fleet. But success had a price: scrutiny. One Wednesday morning, news broke that a prominent AV company out of Phoenix, Volt Drive, had suffered a catastrophic system failure in their own driverless fleet. One of their cars had collided with a delivery truck in Tucson, resulting in serious injuries. The crash wasn't fatal, but it triggered a storm of investigations and anti-AV sentiment. The media latched onto the phrase, "black box failure," referencing the inability to pinpoint the cause from system logs. Almost overnight, public trust in AVs everywhere took a hit. Tesla, though uninvolved, was pulled into the narrative. Protesters returned to Austin's City Hall with signs reading, "Don't let robots decide, keep humans in the driver's seat," and "Tesla today, who's next tomorrow?" Lawmakers, already circling from the human override hearings, now demanded full access to Tesla's core AV logs. And for the first time in months, Maya found herself wondering, had they moved too fast? She sat across from Ethan in Tesla's South Congress hub, the city glimmering behind the glass walls. "They're going to use Volt Drive's failure to try and shut us down," he said quietly. "They can't," Maya replied. "Different architecture. Our safety protocols, our human override, none of that existed in Volt Drive's platform. That won't matter in the headlines." She rubbed her eyes. "So we explain it. Show the transparency. Pull back the curtain." He paused. "Even the full telemetry?" She hesitated. That was the dilemma. Tesla's full AV stack, neural nets, decision matrices, situational inference models, was proprietary. It wasn't just code. It was IP worth billions. But right now, public trust was worth more. That afternoon, Maya held a live-streamed press conference from inside a Tesla Robotaxi, parked in front of the iconic Pennybacker Bridge. "We've all seen the headlines," she began, her voice steady. "And we understand the fear. But fear is only conquered with facts. That's why starting today, Tesla is publishing anonymized decision logs for every Robotaxi ride in Austin." A journalist interrupted, skeptical. "You're willing to show everything?" "We'll show what matters, the how and why of every major driving decision. Every stop, every yield, every override. This isn't about defending our tech. It's about earning your trust." The logs were clean. The data flowed. And the public responded. Online, analysts broke down the logs, praising the clarity. Safety experts used the model as a benchmark. Even skeptics admitted it was a first-of-its-kind move in tech accountability. For a moment, it seemed the storm had passed. But then, one of the logs caught fire online. A popular TikTok user zoomed in on a February 19th ride in East Austin where the Robotaxi stopped suddenly mid-route. According to the log, the vehicle detected inconsistent gait patterns in a nearby pedestrian and decided to pause, despite no direct obstruction. The car waited nearly 15 seconds before continuing. The video was captioned, "Car stopped because it thought a guy was walking weird. Is that profiling?" The post exploded. Accusations flew that Tesla's pedestrian detection system was biased. Activists and advocacy groups demanded explanations. "You're policing people's bodies with algorithms," one headline read. Maya immediately convened the ethics board. Engineers confirmed that the system had flagged the pedestrian because of an irregular walking pattern, interpreted as potential impairment or distress. The system had been trained to prioritize caution in such cases. It wasn't profiling, the lead AI trainer insisted. It was protection. "But that's a slippery line," Maya replied. "People don't want to feel judged by a machine." They debated for hours. Finally, Maya made the call: introduce a new transparency layer. Going forward, whenever a robotaxi made an unusual decision based on non-standard behavior, it would log not just the decision, but the logic behind it. That logic would be accessible to riders through a new in-app feature called Context Mode. The update rolled out quietly over the next week. Early feedback was positive. Users appreciated knowing why their car had paused or rerouted, even if the answer was strange. "Robotaxis now explain themselves better than some people do," joked one user. But the deeper issues lingered. One night, Maya met privately with a city councilwoman who had long criticized the robotaxi rollout. They sat in a quiet cafe off South First, the lights dim, the air humid with spring rain. "You've done more for transparency than any tech company I've seen," the councilwoman admitted. "But people still feel watched. Judged. You can't regulate vibes, Maya." "I know," Maya said softly. "But we can design for them. Teach the system to be cautious without being condescending. Respectful, not invasive. Is that even possible? It has to be." She paused, then added, "That's why we're building a new layer." The councilwoman leaned in. "What kind of layer?" "An interpretive buffer. Before a behavioral flag triggers action, it'll run through a human-reviewed heuristic to check for contextual bias. Not everything strange is dangerous. Sometimes people just walk funny." The plan was bold, expensive, and slow. It required hiring dozens of new reviewers, retraining data sets, and rewriting major pieces of the inference stack. But Maya was committed. She no longer cared about launch timelines. She cared about dignity. The hardest part was that none of this was in the original roadmap. Back in 2023, the dream had been autonomy, pure, seamless, clinical. But in practice, autonomy had collided with reality. People were messy. And that messiness deserved space. Tesla dubbed the new effort Project Halo. A silent layer of empathy, designed to run between code and action, not to dilute the machine, but to humanize it. In April, Maya took the stage at South by Southwest, this time with a different tone. She was less CEO, more citizen. "I used to think the goal was a perfect ride," she told the crowd. "But now I believe the goal is a respectful one. Because respect, not perfection, is what defines human connection." She paused, then asked the audience. "How many of you have ever felt misunderstood by a person?" Nearly every hand rose. Now imagine feeling misunderstood by a machine, and having no way to explain yourself. Silence. "That's what we're fixing." The speech went viral. Not because it was flashy, but because it was honest. A week later, Maya received an email from the man whose walking had caused the controversial stop. His name was Jordan. He had a mild neuromuscular disorder, he wrote, and was used to stairs. But the robotaxi? It hadn't stared. It had just waited. It hadn't judged him. It had protected him. And knowing that made him feel seen. "I think that stop may have saved my life," he wrote. "Thank you for building something that chose patience over speed." Maya printed the email and taped it beside her desk. The next few weeks were a whirlwind: ethics panels, tech summits, policy negotiations. Maya testified before a federal AV task force, where she argued that accountability and autonomy weren't mutually exclusive. That AI needed interpreters. That the future must leave room for grace. One senator asked her bluntly, "So what's the line? How much control should a machine have?" Maya's answer was simple. "Enough to keep us safe. Never so much that we can't ask it to stop and explain why." By summer, Project Halo was fully operational. Tesla's new interpretive framework became the gold standard. Other companies, once wary, adopted similar layers. But for Maya, the real success wasn't in market share or legislation. It was in the small moments. A boy on his first solo ride, smiling as the car explained his route. A grandmother tapping the override not in fear, but to say hi to a neighbor. A disabled vet thanking a machine, not for driving, but for listening. Autonomy was never supposed to be about letting go. It was always about knowing we had the choice. And for the first time in a long time, Maya felt that maybe, just maybe, they were no longer on a collision course. They were charting a new one. Together. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?